There are 258 million adults in America. And if you gathered all the wealth in this country into one giant pile and started dividing it up, here's what would happen. 10 people would walk away with more than the bottom 160 million combined. Not 10%, 10 actual people. And the story of how we got here is way more disturbing than you think. I'm Ava, and what I'm about to show you will change how you see everything. Your job, your savings, the economy, even the news you watch every day. Because the wealth gap in America isn't just big, it's mathematically insane. And the reason most people don't understand it is because your brain literally cannot process numbers this extreme. If you want to understand who actually owns America and why you're working harder than your parents but falling further behind, hit subscribe. And if this video makes you angry, good, get angry. Then smash that like button so more people see this. Let me show you what wealth distribution actually looks like, because statistics are boring, but stories aren't. Imagine you line up 100 Americans in order of wealth. Person 1 is homeless. Person 100 is a billionaire. You're probably somewhere around person 50 to 70 if you're watching this video. Now imagine you're splitting up $100 to represent all of America's wealth. Person 1 through 50, the poorest half of Americans, they get to split $2. $2 among 50 people. That's 4 cents each. Person 51 through 90, the middle class, they split $28, about 70 cents each. Person 91 through 99, the top 9%, they get $40, about $4.50 each. And person 100, the top 1%, they walk away with $30. One person, $30, more than the bottom 90 people combined. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. If you zoom into just that top person and break them into 100 more people, the top person of that group has more wealth than the other 99 combined. This is what inequality actually looks like. And your brain probably just broke trying to visualize it, because it's not supposed to be possible in a functioning economy. Let me tell you 2 stories happening in America right now. Sarah is 32. She's a nurse. She works 50 hours a week. She makes $75,000 a year, which is more than 60% of Americans. She's doing everything right, saving money, paying off student loans, living below her means. Last year, Sarah's net worth increased by $8,000. She's proud of this. She should be. That's real progress. Now, let me tell you about Jeff. Not Jeff Bezos, just a guy named Jeff who works in private equity. He's 34. He makes $400,000 a year, but that's not the interesting part. Jeff's family gave him $200,000 when he turned 25 to get started. He bought a condo that's now worth $400,000. He has $300,000 in stocks that his dad helped him pick. His net worth increased by $180,000 last year, and he barely thought about it. The market just went up. Sarah worked 2,600 hours last year to increase her wealth by $8,000. That's $3 per hour of wealth building. Jeff's existing assets made him $180,000 while he slept, worked, or went on vacation. He built wealth by having wealth than Sarah built by working. But here's the part that breaks the whole system. This isn't a story about working harder. Sarah can't work 22 times harder to catch up to Jeff. It's physically impossible. The game isn't about effort anymore. It's about who started with assets. Now let me show you what happens over time, because this is where it gets really dark. Sarah keeps working hard. In 20 years, if everything goes perfectly, she might have $400,000 saved for retirement. She did everything right, saved 15% of her income, invested wisely, never made major mistakes. Jeff, in 20 years, his $500,000 in assets becomes $3.4 million at 10% returns. He didn't work harder. He didn't make better choices. He just had more money making more money. The gap between them went from $450,000 to $3 million. Not because Jeff was smarter or worked harder, but because wealth compounds exponentially, and Sarah started from zero. This is what people mean when they say the rich get richer. It's not a moral judgment, it's math. When you have assets, those assets make money. When you don't have assets, you trade time for money. And there are only 24 hours in a day. Sarah is running a race where Jeff started 100 yards from the finish line, and she's wondering why she can't catch up no matter how fast she runs. But it gets even worse. Let me introduce you to the mechanism that makes sure this never changes. In the next 25 years, baby boomers boomers are going to pass down $84 trillion in wealth. That's trillion with a T, the largest wealth transfer in human history. Now ask yourself, where's that money going? It's going to their kids. And who are their kids? The people who already have wealth, the people who already own assets, the people who already have advantages. Sarah's parents don't have assets to pass down. They're still paying off their own debts. Maybe they leave her $30,000 if she's lucky. Jeff's parents, they're passing down $2 million in real estate, stocks, and retirement accounts. So the wealth gap doesn't just continue, it explodes. The kids who already had every advantage get generational wealth dropped on them. The kids who started behind fall further behind through no fault of their own. This is why you can work harder than your parents, be more educated than your parents, make better financial decisions than your parents, and still end up worse off financially because you're competing against people who inherited the finish line. Here's the lie we're all told. Work hard, save money, invest wisely, and you'll be fine. And for Sarah, she is fine. She's not going to be homeless. She'll probably retire eventually. She's in the top 40% of Americans, but she's never going to be wealthy. Not through work, because work doesn't create wealth anymore. Assets create wealth. Let me give you a number that will make this clear. The median American household has a net worth of $192,000. Sounds okay, right? Except most of that is home equity, which you can't spend unless you sell your house. The median American worker makes $54,000 per year. If you save 10% of that for 40 years and invest it at 8% returns, you end up with about $1.4 million at retirement. That sounds like a lot until you realize it needs to last 30 years, which is $46,000 per year, less than you were making while working. You worked for 40 years to afford a retirement that's worse than your working life. That's not wealth. That's survival. Meanwhile, the top 1% have an average net worth of $11 million. They're not working for money. Their money works for them. So why doesn't this make national news every single day? Why aren't we talking about this constantly? Because the people who own the wealth also own the media companies. They own the politicians. They own the systems that decide what we talk about and what we ignore. They don't need you to stay poor. They just need you to stay distracted, arguing about inflation or taxes or whatever culture war topic is trending this week. As long as you're not asking who owns everything and how did they get it, the system keeps working exactly as designed. And here's the really insidious part. They've convinced half the country that talking about wealth inequality is class warfare or socialism, like noticing that 10 people own more than 160 million is somehow un-American. But you know what's actually un-American? A system where hard work doesn't matter anymore, where your zip code at birth determines your financial future more than your effort ever will. Here's what I need you to understand. This isn't about being jealous of rich people. This isn't about punishing success. This is about recognizing that the game is rigged, and pretending it isn't just makes you easier to exploit. You can be mad at me for saying this. You can tell yourself I'm exaggerating. You can believe that you're just one good idea or one promotion away from making it. Or you can look at the numbers. Look at who owns what. Look at where wealth actually comes from and realize that working harder isn't the answer when the problem is structural. Sarah will never catch Jeff, not because she's lazy or stupid, but because she's playing a game where the rules were written by people who already won. 10 people own more wealth than 160 million Americans combined. Read that again until it makes you uncomfortable, because the only way this changes is if enough people understand how broken it actually is. Not a little unfair, not could be better, but mathematically, structurally, completely broken. I can't tell you how to fix it. I'm not a politician or an economist, but I can tell you this. The first step is seeing it clearly, understanding who owns what, how they got it, and why you're working twice as hard as your parents for half the result. If this video made you see the economy differently, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment with where you think you fall in that 1 to 100 lineup. Let's talk about what nobody else wants to say out loud. I'm Ava. Now you know who really owns America. The question is, what are you going to do about it?